welcome, guys. Our next session is with very, very inspiring gentleman, Roger Rohatgi. I am going to be introducing him shortly. So Roger is from BP. So without further ado, I am introducing Roger. Hi, Roger. How are you?
Hey, Jamie. How are you? Great to be here.
Pleasure. So without further ado, I'll let Roger just introduce himself and take the stage.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, it's a pleasure to be with all of you this evening. For those of you that are watching this in the evening, and of course, wherever you may be, I'm excited about today, especially these last 2 days, Metaverse Day or days, and really excited about what I have the opportunity to be able to share with you, and perhaps what we can discuss together if there's time. So, Jamie, if you don't mind, I'd like to share a presentation, and we can start with that. And as Jamie's pulling up those slides, again, I think if there are questions, please feel free to put those in the chat, and hopefully we'll get time to answer those, or I will. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about embracing the MetaVergence, because our future depends on it. And the MetaVergence is going to be a word that I share a little bit more about as we get into the presentation, and why that word's so important, and why it's so important for really the future and for our future. If you can go to the next slide. So my name is Roger Rohatgi. I'm the Vice President and Global Head of Design at BP. And I have spent the last 25 plus years in the design space, in and out of television and film, B2C, B2B, agency, brand, and even through e-commerce and the early days of mobile and web and social, and trying to bring all that together. I had the privilege of producing an international film that won an International Film Award. And some of the designs I did when I was leading in social television, interaction television, ended up going into the app called Vine, which ultimately it was a precursor to TikTok. And it's kind of funny to think back all these years now, but it was an exciting time for sure. And digital and the world has changed, and design has changed, but the essence and the purpose and the point of design hasn't, which is truly about being human-centered, right? Putting humans at the center of all the equation. And so as I went through my journey as a designer and ultimately a design leader, I found that when I worked with all of these organizations, whether it was television, film, whether it was in digital, social, apps, and mobile, and everything in between, and whether we were designing for the silver screen of the movies and the small screen on our wrists for the smart devices, they all had, all these companies and all these apps had the same challenge. And that was, how do they help people? How do they reach people? How do they engage people? And how do brands solve people's needs or meet their needs and solve their challenges? And my company was no different. So if you go to the next slide, BP reached out to me at the end of 2019 on LinkedIn, and I'm loving in the chat with Chewbacca. Listen, just because I'm a little nerdy, I'll throw this out there for y'all. So anyway, for those Star Wars nerds like me, so BP reached out to me at the end of 2019, and I was on LinkedIn. It was on LinkedIn, and I said, "What in the world are they reaching out to me for?" And us from the tech world. I was leading global design at places like Motorola, and I didn't know that BP needed somebody like myself or like us, perhaps on this event. But turns out they did, and they said, "Hey, listen, we are going through a massive digital transformation. There is, AR, VR, XR, MR in our company. We're exploring AI. We've got fleets of drones. We've got robotic dogs. We've got crawlers going up walls, through pipes, underwater, all this cool stuff." And I said, "Well, that's great. That's awesome that you have all that technology. And we're transitioning to the world of digital. And I think that's amazing." And I said, "But how are you putting people at the center of all of this? How are you really designing for humans and making sure that their needs are met and their challenges are solved?" And they said, "Well, we think we need help with that." So I became the first design leader in BP's 100-year history. I started at the beginning of February of 2020. And I believe the first designer in their history as well, from a perm perspective. But when I came in, there were hundreds of designers and dozens and dozens of agencies and thousands of designs, but nobody actually doing design, big design, one design, and a design focus in an organized manner. And so we set up what I call, if you can go to the next slide, something special that has to do with human experience design. So we're called BPHXD. And human experience design is an area that or a phrasing that I wanted to coin here, because I believe that It's bigger than just UX. It's bigger than just XD. It's the full human experience. And we like to say here, we harness human experience design to reimagine energy for people on our planet. And I think my second week, I was in London when our company announced that we would march toward net zero. And I found that extremely prolific and bold. And it was something very special that I felt when I heard that. And when I knew that there was already something that we can do with not just a digital transformation, but through an energy transition and do something on the inside of a company like this. But I didn't realize how important and how big it would be. And so I got really excited and tried to figure out how can we combine sustainability and design together. And we've been on a journey to do that. And it's been really exciting because we are now not just designing for our people and the people around the world, but also for our planet and putting people and planet on equal footing. And that's part of the full human experience. Jamie, if you could go to the next slide. And what Brian Pagan says when he talks about human experience design, I like to use this quote, is that it considers the needs of users, customers, and active and passive stakeholders, or people that are on the inside of an organization, perhaps. And so it's UX plus CX plus EX. And you can't have an amazing customer experience if you don't have that really deep and powerful user experience and thought out user experience. And you can't have a really amazing thought out user experience if you don't have a really authentic employee experience. And so I remember where somebody said, well, why are you going to call the HX here? And they may not even understand UX at our company. And I said, well, we'll show them because it's much bigger than that, right? And it's taking UX, CX, EX, and putting it into that larger picture of what is the possibilities and the ways that we can elevate human experiences around us and through our lives. And it's bringing together the merging of so many different parts of technology, our daily lives, and even our work lives. And so I began to think about how we can explore ways to design differently for our company with the technologies around us, but not designing because of the technology, designing because we're humans that need certain aspects of that technology. And these are the needs that the technology can meet, right? Whether it's AI, whether it's metaverse, and all of these particular technologies that are rising. And so I began to build a studio in our organization, and we have several of those around the world now. And in our studios, we started working on how we can really leverage the metaverse, but also AI as well. And we're going to talk about that today, which I hope you'll find exciting. But just to give you a kind of a glimpse of the scale and size of what we're trying to achieve here at BP through design, and BP HXD design is quite large. So it's B2B, it's B2C, it's B2B2C, it's B2G. I like to say business to governments, helping whole cities and governments become sustainable. It's B2E, which is all the enterprise software, and then I like to say it's B2Me, which is that employee experience. And we're designing across all of those areas, and it's massive. We surmise it could be around 200,000 interfaces that we're trying to account for, and about 5,800 to 6,000 apps. And so there's so much to do, and we need help, honestly. And so if anybody's out there and you're interested, we certainly need help, especially in areas where we're building up for our EV charging and BP Pulse and some of those really exciting opportunities to bring the sustainable revolution to what we do and where we're headed. But if I were to just talk about this technology breakthrough that we're all experiencing right now with AI and the metaverse and all these things, if you go to the next slide, Jamie, you'll see that ultimately the metaverse, in my opinion, is the merging of our physical and digital worlds together. So when we're using VR and AR, XR, MR, AI, and bring our own cognitive selves, beings, together to create shared experiences in multi-dimensions, that is where I believe there's going to be a cross-section of change. And there's an evolution of what's going to happen in the metaverse. And we're going to talk about that this evening. And it could be as simple as, multiplayer game, or it could be, or just an immersive VR experience or world, but then it could be so much more than that. And it's interesting to watch the things that are launching, the companies that are investing, right? We've all seen Meta and Quest, 3, and now, and of course, Magic Leap, and now Apple Vision Pro. Disney just launched their treadmill. I'm sure lots of great speakers have been talking about all these different things. There's lo-fi 5D immersive experiences. So if you haven't heard of that, check out Low 5D. That's quite interesting. That's happening right now. And the talk of the metaverse in companies like ours isn't necessarily something that we walk around saying, "Hey, let's do the metaverse. Let's use these terms." It's more about how do we create immersive experiences for people so that we can make their lives better, make them safer, and connect us across the globe. And so you'll see that in the trends of, whether it's in powerful mobile and wearable devices, through social media and gaming, and of course, large language models, and through AI and so forth. And there's a cross section between XR and IoT and AI and digital twin that if we look at metaverse separate from all that, it actually could be the thing that ties it all together. So if you go to the next slide. One of the amazing things that I wanted to talk to you about is what we're doing with the metaverse inside of BP, and then jump into some thoughts I have around the metaverse. Yesterday was a really special day, and I have the privilege of being able to announce that publicly here. We are one of the first companies in the world that have taken a part of the pilot program of Microsoft Mesh. And what we have built is quite prolific. We're the first energy company that we know of to do this, according to Microsoft, and Microsoft feels like we may be one of the most advanced companies as it relates to using mesh in the world. And they launched that on their 365 blog yesterday about the work that we're doing inside of our company, which is really exciting. So you're welcome to go, if you Google Microsoft Mesh BP or my name, you'll be able to find some of that information there as well. And not only are we partnered with Microsoft on Mesh and one of the first companies to do this in the world, which is really exciting for our company, but also for what we can do together with Microsoft. But we also are one of the first companies to take advantage of Copilot and through AI in our company, which is really exciting as well. We're, I believe, the first UK-based company, and we're also the first energy company to be a part of the partnership with Microsoft around Copilot, which is also very exciting. Combining those two together is where I see it could be really, really interesting. So the area that we had leveraged Microsoft Mesh in, aside from some of the things I'll show you in just a moment, was something we call the highly immersive visualization environments. We call them hives. And these were physical locations around the globe that allowed people to connect and think about planning and how we can be safe, but also solve complex challenges, whether it's in engineering or the ways that we can look at the future of our wind farms and all sorts of kind of interactions in that respect. And we were able to use Mesh to build these new hives virtually so that we can actually reduce our carbon footprint around the world and meet globally in a more connected way, but have more interactive opportunities or immersive opportunities in virtual hives, which also saves our company money, which was really exciting to be able to have that breakthrough and see that we can make an impact from design and also from technology as well for our company. And this is just the beginning. There's many more areas that we know we're going to explore, but I have the awesome just excitement and honor to be able to announce that today here, and just so happen on Metaverse Day, which is, I think, really humbling and very cool for us and for me. So if you go to the next slide, another area that we have been leveraging the metaverse is probably what a lot of other companies are doing, which is quite exciting, and that is really building up a better employee experience. And so whether it's through onboarding or employee engagement and training and immersion, really understanding how we do sustainable design and designing for the way that we can decarbonize design and design for decarbonization, what I call net zero UX, has been really exciting. But that collaboration is taking place throughout our company, and it's beginning to rise even more and more. And we've built worlds to be able to interlink us together. If you go to the next slide. A lot of other companies are doing different things like this too, but some of the ones that stand out are Accenture, of course, and what they're doing with Accenture Park and the global village that the World Economic Forum had, and of course things with Hyundai as well. So in the interest of time, I'll let you explore those on your own at another time. But if you go to the next slide. And I think for us, one of the things that we had to look at is, why do companies care? And why do companies want to invest in this? And if you look at the numbers, it's quite staggering. Now, there was in 2020 about $12 billion investment, and now in 2024, $72.8 billion, which may or may not be completely accurate depending on how the numbers are landing. And I'm sure other speakers are talking about this as well. But what I did find that was interesting is what Deloitte recently said about the additional $800 billion to $1.4 trillion to Asia's GDP per year, which could see $13 trillion annual market in 2030 through the metaverse. And McKinsey had something similar, a little bit lower number, but still in the trillions, 5 trillion by 2030. And so there's still this appetite for all this. And then you have some of the biggest companies like Apple investing in that. And we begin to think like, why? And what is it that we can harness inside to be able to also see how it can make that difference? If you go to the next slide. I think that once we begin to realize that it is a technology that we should invest in, it is an area that we should be thinking about, it is something that we should be leveraging for our people and even for our customers, how does it actually show up then in real life, right? And so I started thinking about my own thoughts on this, and I started thinking about that concept, MetaVergence. And so I started realizing that it seems that we're all trying to enter into the world of the metaverse. But instead, I feel like we need the metaverse to actually enter into our world. So the success, I believe, of the metaverse is not having these bulky headsets, perhaps, and all these different tools and wires and cords that may still have on some devices. But the success is, how does that interaction that happens in the metaverse and the things that we do in perhaps virtual spaces connect back to my real life, my work life, my home life, my family, my situation, my moments in life? And how does that relate back and connect back and become relevant to how I live? And so that's where I think there could be a complete shift, right? So this will be the MetaVergence, how all of these technologies, AR, MR, XR, VR, AI, and our cognitive beings converge to actually begin to see a new way of living through the future. One of those ways I'll talk to you and show you here in a moment. So if you can just move to the next slide, Jamie. And first, though, before I show you that, I think there's the concept that other people have talked about, and this isn't new, but the concepts of synchronicity, persistency, and continuity. So there's the synchronous space, right? Many of you already know. And it's where the metaverse has a shared experience, that we're all synced up together in these shared environments, whatever that might be. So whether it might be in gaming or whether it might be in these platforms, it's all synchronous. And there's a persistent space where the metaverse continues to exist and the events continue to happen, whether you are out there or not, right? And so again, these aren't necessarily all my thoughts, but these are areas that we've all been exploring, and you can find some of this stuff online as well. But users should continue to frequent the metaverse space over a long time and horizon, and also experience narratives and content that needs to be dynamic and evolving. But the interesting thing is continuity. And continuity, right? The ability to take something that you own from one place to another in the metaverse without changing in its form or substance is quite interesting, because could there be, whatever you do in the metaverse, could you actually take that into your physical life? So what you have in the virtual world, could you take it into the physical world? And maybe one day, could you do the opposite, which could be kind of crazy. So the future and the success of the metaverse is how it will also show up in our real world and be truly relevant. If you can go to the next slide. So how do we get there? Like, what's one example? And an example of that is something I was exploring about people who are called multipotentialites. Multipotentialites are people that have many interests and creative pursuits, according to Wikipedia. And if you think about the concept of the metaverse and you think about the concept of, just together with physical. In physical, I can only be in one place at one time. But I remember last year, I was asked to speak at some conferences. And it was a wild, interesting day, because I was speaking at a conference live while I had a pre-recording of myself at another conference simultaneously. And I was in two places at once, while there was another conversation going on that they were going to air later that day. And so being at three places at once was even more wild, right? To feel that. And I started thinking about, what if we began to have multiple aspects of ourself. So if you look at what we're trying to use some of VR for and different areas of technology, we look at what we call digital twins. And if you were to take a digital twin of yourself or a virtual clone of yourself or an avatar, like some people call it, and put that into the virtual world, it would need, clothes and, directions, and you would want to, do whatever you want to do with that avatar. But what if I wanted to put another one in a different virtual world and another one of myself in a different one? And then I could set those up to have different needs and different looks and different connections. And I may have different friends in all of those. And then what if I wanted to, in the physical world, when I'm on calls with people, I wanted to have another version of myself that would go to a Teams call or a Zoom call, and it would show up just like I would, but it would take notes and do tasks for me, even though I couldn't be there, using AI. And then what if I had other versions of myself for the things I do in my physical life? Like this one takes care of my bills, or when I need to pay something, or it hunts down the numbers for me and things like that. And it's almost like myself cloned. And it becomes something where I have a digital omnipresence, where there will be potentially a rise of people having multiple avatars and digital personas showing up in many worlds, capable of performing different tasks and different learned behaviors or interests. It's kind of like co-pilot AI on steroids, right? And so when you think about companies, I was thinking companies wouldn't just hire a person just by themselves. They might look at somebody in the future and say, hey, we're hiring you, and also all the different versions of yourself that you've trained to do different tasks in virtual worlds that we need to now take advantage of. And they're all trained on different things that I've inputted them, because it's my own virtual or digital DNA that's gone into them. And so it's multiple selves that they're hiring, right? Or multiple versions of you that they're hiring. And so even when you have this many different versions of yourself, brands, instead of catering to the niche things that you want only, they might also be trying to cater to the niche things that your virtual self wants and your virtual selves want. So it may be different needs in one world and different needs in another world, and the brands would then cater to those particular aspects of you in those digital places. And so it becomes multiplicity marketing, right? And there's this marketing to different needs and wants in different places. But again, it's all you, just different parts of you, and having different functions and what you've set up in those worlds. And you might have different connections, different interactions, again, not just different friends groups, but different relationships and things as so forth. And this would be potentially propagated or advanced through AI, which will continue to power further the power of interactions and set this up to be more on the level of autonomous agents, and it can really grow and then begin to think in ways for you when you're not even there, and answer for you when you're not there as well. And so the future could be that there was this ecosystem of yourself that's out there in the world, and you would be what you could be called a multipotentialite, because you have that multipotentiality of the impact you can make in various areas of the digital realm, and then that would come affect the physical realm. So, another slide. And why I have come to this conclusion, or some of these thoughts, is I've been watching one of my sons, actually both my sons. My oldest is special needs. He's autistic. He's neurodiverse, and he is just brilliant. He's amazing. He's just full of wonder, full of gifts, superpowers. And he makes me a lot of these different things on my shelves here behind me. And he's deep into gaming and deep into the world of Minecraft and Roblox. And so is my other son. And what I found was, what can Gen Alpha teach us about the future and how they're interacting? Because they're so immersed in this already. And so I started thinking about something called symbolic interactionism. And that's defined as the theory that society is possible because of the shared meanings and social patterns created during social interactions. And so the future of our existence depends on that generation coming, because they are bringing in all of their new social interactions in a digital or virtual place that is going to then change the way society is set up. And so that symbolic interactionism is going to begin to evolve based upon what Gen Alpha is learning and doing now. I'll say these few examples and then I'll close. they're already picking up all these different business concepts. My son, when he was 9 or whatever, I remember I went in to see him and he was online on some game and he said, "Hey, dad, I can't talk right now." And I was like, "Why is that?" And he's like, "Well, and so he said, "I have a buyer." And I was like, "You have a buyer? What is this?" And what he had was he had there's these virtual products, and he had created a way to set up a PDP, a product detail page, for all of these virtual products on an off-world website. And then he would sell these for virtual currency, and then they would come into the game and then give him virtual currency to exchange this. He was like 8 or 9, and I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "So I'm busy. I've got to like sell this stuff." And so he already had this business concept going on. And then he said, I said, "Well, why are you offering this stuff for free?" He says, "Oh, well, I want people to give me higher ratings. And then once I get high ratings, then I'll just add a price to it. And because I have followers now and they'll keep coming back." Right. So he had the concept of gamification, which was really wild. And so he was selling virtual goods and services. He's interacting with all these groups. But then there was something even more interesting that struck me. And he was in Roblox, and there's something called Pet Simulator X, and he had manipulated my wife into buying this physical stuffed animal from, and it came all the way from China. And it's a pet. And when he got to us, it had a code for a virtual pet inside of the game of Roblox and Pet Simulator. And so he said, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to go grind, and I'm also going to go flex." And I'm like, "What is that?" And my wife's like, "You don't know what grinding and flexing is?" I'm like, "No, sorry, I didn't really know what those terms were." But basically, he said, "I'm going to go into this virtual room, and I'm going to grind, which is I'm going to earn all these coins and all this I guess virtual money, if you will. And then I'm going to flex." And flexing is he has all these pets that follow him. But this one pet that he got was super rare, and it's bigger than any other one. So when he walks into this room, there was 100 little virtual children in there, and they just freak out. They were like, "Ah!" You would have thought they saw Justin Bieber. I mean, they rush him, and they were just little speech bubbles and things popping off and on, going, "Well, what is this? What is?" And he was flexing his virtual good that he got from the physical world. And it was pretty wild to watch. And he would just go to the next room and the next room and in these different worlds and show off what he had. And he became popular in this realm. And he had earned all these different currency or money in this virtual world. And then there was one day that he walked into one of the virtual worlds, and he was setting up stuff. And there was a person came into the room and said, "Hey, everybody in this room, if you open up your vaults and show us how much virtual money you have, we will give you this special rare pet." And so my son, being innocent and just very young, said, "Sure." So he opens up his vault, and somehow they hacked it and stole all of his currency. I heard the loudest scream I had ever heard in my life come out of him. I came running into the other room. I thought maybe he had gotten hurt or hit or something, and it broke my heart. He was crying his eyes out. Finally, I said, "What was it? What happened?" And he said, I lost everything. They took everything." And I realized at that moment how real this was for him, that it was like he really got robbed. And I remember just holding him so tight, just going, "Look, man, I'm here." And I could have done the tough dad thing and said, "Well, that's what you learn. You don't open your vault to somebody again," kind of thing. But instead I said, "Look, I'll get you another one. I'll get you another pet. I'll get you another stuff." And so I felt like, because I was like, "Look, man, that shouldn't happen to anyone. Nobody should feel that." But what I realized was that was so real to him, and that these virtual experiences, these social interactions, are way beyond us just putting on a headset or playing in Roblox. This is our life. This is our connection. And so if we don't now start designing and planning for the future of how our generations are going to interact together socially, we're going to have a massive hit upon the emotions and the interactions of the people around us and those generations to come. So just right at the end of my talk. So if you go to the last slide, I want to thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure to be here with you all. I hope you learned something. I hope you were inspired. I hope you design the future. I hope you see that we could take all of these virtual things that we're doing, all of these technologies, and combine it with our physical world to truly metaverge for the future. Thank you so much. Remember to design for planet and people. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening or wherever you may be.
Amazing, amazing. Thanks so much for that, Roger. We've got time for maybe just one question.
Good.
Literally just a quick one because we're behind time. So how can we strike a balance between the benefits of digital omnipresence and the potential challenges related to privacy, mental health, and information overload?
Yeah, so I think that that's a great question, and I think thank you. I think that look, there's so much of this that we are still trying to figure out. If you think about the internet, the mobile devices, how things have come about, Apple today is still releasing updates around privacy. They're still helping us lock our phones so no one steals it out in the streets or whatever of London, right? There's or wherever you might be. There's still companies that are exploring how do we keep things more secure and more private. So I don't think we'll be able to crack that. I think it's something that we have to, it's going to happen in real time. And it's, I think we have now learnings that we can apply, but just like what happened to my son, how do you prepare a generation? How do you prepare people to not be so naive in the virtual world, and also not be so naive with their data and so forth? And if you're in all these different places, how does one avatar not get manipulated over another one by other AI, and AI trying to manipulate AI, which could be really, really crazy, which that might be coming. But I think it's going to be really a real-time conversation that we have to have. So how do we make these secure? How do we make them more sustainable? How do we make them safe? How do we help, with leveraging this to help mental health? And I like my son, who is special needs. He doesn't have, my older one, he doesn't have the friends like you and I probably have. And so his world is that world. And so his mental health gets better in those places. But like my other son, it sometimes can get a hit, right? And so there's those special things. I think the last point that you asked was, I can't remember, Jamie, what the last part of the question was, but hopefully I answered that. There was one last piece in that where it said, yeah, information overload. So look, if we are already at information overload, I don't know what else is, but it's going to come. And I think that the beauty of potentially having different versions of ourselves and allowing AI to take some of this off our shoulders is that we would then be able to focus on the things that we want to focus on. So the information that we want to absorb into, and those other aspects will then take on the overload, if you will. So it might be a little bit different than you think. So that's perhaps the answer to that question. And I love what somebody put in the chat there. So with that, thank you again, and may the force be with you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Roger Rohatgi. And guys, feel free to connect with Roger on LinkedIn and fire the rest of your questions over. So apologies, we're just behind a schedule, so I'm just going to head into the next one. Really appreciate you. Thanks so much, Roger.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, guys. So feel free to pop